Hey everyone, it's Elliott, and welcome back to the channel. I've been curious lately about whether or not an EQ can achieve the same thing as splitting a humbucker can. At least something certainly in the ballpark. Like, splitting always kind of has its own sound, doesn't really sound like a single coil, but it's in the ballpark. And I'm wondering if an EQ can get in the ballpark. I grabbed this EQ from a Leon Todd video where he tried to do something similar and make his PRS short scale guitar sound kind of like his Strat. I'm curious about this in general because when you split a humbucker, obviously it becomes a single coil or whatever, and so you get all that hum as well. If you're using any kind of gain whatsoever, all of a sudden all the humbucking qualities are gone. So instead of like a relatively quiet sound with a ton of gain, there's a little bit of hum there with the humbucker, I get quite a bit more when I split. Now that example was with a lot of gain, but if I'm at a venue that has like kind of whatever electricity, I might not even want to split the humbucker on a clean sound because it'll end up with that amount of noise or more. So obviously I'm like, well, can I achieve the same thing and have it be humbucking? So that's basically what led to this experiment. Also, if you like what you see here today or get something from today's video, please like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate it. It really helps me out. Also, feel free to support this channel by checking out the Patreon link in the description. Now let's get to some tones. So I'm going to start out with the middle position on my TWEED Twin preset. Now let's try it with both coils split. And then both as humbuckers, but with a different EQ. Now let's try it just the bridge pickup with a humbucker. Now split. Now the different EQ. Lastly, let's do the neck, first as a humbucker. Then split. And with the different EQ. So I kind of noticed it the least on the neck pickup, but there's still something there. I was curious about this approach in regards to gain, because I know when I have like a, decent amount of gain, not like tons of it or nothing, but a good amount, and I split the humbucker, there's a very clear difference. So let's try a decent amount of gain with the humbucker. Now split, which means a little bit of hum. And lastly, with the different EQ. So sometimes I'm preferring the different EQ and sometimes I'm preferring the split coil, honestly. Like Especially with gain, the split coil had that more twang, all that other stuff, and it seemed a bit muted with the different EQ. But on the clean tone, I actually kind of preferred the EQ difference because there's something about the split coil on clean that's just like, I don't know what that sound is, but it's not a single coil and it's not a humbucker. If I was playing something more funky, like I didn't really want to split it because this wasn't doing it for me. Then that EQ difference is really helping me out, especially if the power is a little weird at the venue, kind of a thing. I think it's especially helpful on the bridge pickup if I was doing basically the same thing. The EQ. It's definitely not like a one-to-one thing. The split coil and the different EQ definitely have different vibes. And for certain scenarios, it might be a different application. And now I'm honestly more curious about EQ, and I'd like to continue playing around with this and see if I can get it closer to that kind of sparkly single coil while still retaining the humbucking qualities. I know in the scenario where I'm playing something super rock, like bridge humbucker, like, full out rock kind of sound, and then say play a sensitive ballad to, end the set kind of a thing right afterwards, I might want a thinner tone. I might not want like a nice warm dual humbucker sound. I might want something thinner. And in that scenario, to go from like, humbucking guitar on its humbucker, rocking out immediately, in the span of a second, 3 seconds tops, to something a bit thinner and clean, this EQ might be the way to go. That way I could go from something like this or on the middle. Pretty quickly, pretty simply, and it achieves that thing that I would have wanted. I would have wanted that clear sound over something like versus So that's just with this different EQ. I'm sure you could have a different EQ curve that would give you a whole different array of sounds. Also, for fractal users, put the EQ and then compressor in that order and put it before your amp. So if you have an EQ pedal that you couldn't live without, please let me know what you use it for in the comments. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see y'all next week.